Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to talk about one of the biggest and, frankly, most overlooked risks to your company's bottom line, the software project. Let's dig into why so many of them go off the rails, and more importantly, how you can make sure yours is a success.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a pretty shocking number from the Standish Group. Get this, almost a third of all software projects get canceled before they're even done. Just think about that for a second. All that money, all that time, all that effort, just gone. Poof.
And what about the ones that actually make it to the finish line? Well, more than half of them will cost, on average, 189% of what was originally planned. I mean, it's like you sign off on $1 million project and end up getting a bill for almost $2 million. It's wild.
Now, when you zoom out and look at this across a big company, the numbers just become mind-boggling. We're talking about a loss of $97 million for every single $1 billion invested, and it all comes down to poor project performance.
You know, here's the thing most people get wrong. They look at these numbers and they think, oh, it's a tech problem. But it's not. Not at all. It's a business problem. And it almost always comes from a breakdown in one fundamental discipline that should happen way before anyone writes a single line of code. BayTech Consulting really hits the nail on the head with this one. The success or failure of a project is determined long before the first line of code is written. I mean, that's it, right there. The battle for your investment, for your ROI, it's won or lost at the very beginning, in the planning phase.
So if planning is everything, what does good planning actually look like? Let's break down the one process that can prevent all these disasters we've been talking about. It's called software scoping. The best way to think about this is to see it as the strategic blueprint for your investment. It's the moment where you take your big picture business goals and you line them up perfectly with the technical plan and, crucially, the financial reality of what it's going to take to get there.
Now here's a distinction that is so important, and it's where a ton of projects get into trouble. You've got product scope. That's the what. You know, all the cool features and functions we want. But then you have project scope, and that's the how. All the disciplined, detailed work needed to actually build it. Projects fail when leaders get all excited about the what and totally ignore the how.
So the big output from all this scoping work is something called a statement of work, or an SOW. This is your game plan, your formal agreement. It clearly defines the objectives so everybody agrees on what done looks like. It lists out the deliverables so you know exactly what you're getting. It sets the timeline. This is the one document that gets everyone on the exact same page with the exact same vision.
Okay, so you've got your blueprint. Your SOW is locked in. Now comes the hard part. You have to defend it. You have to be ready to fight what I like to call the silent killer of project ROI. And this is what we're talking about, scope creep. You know, it never shows up as some big, obvious demand. It's sneaky. It starts with those little, seemingly harmless requests. Hey, can we just add one more button? Or, you know what would be great? A new report. But those little things, they start to add up, and they can spiral into massive, project-destroying problems.
And just look at the ripple effect here. That one small change doesn't just hit one thing. It causes chaos everywhere. The budget explodes with overruns, the timeline gets pushed back, your team starts to burn out from the constant changes, and the quality of the actual product goes down the drain because you're rushing and introducing bugs.
So how do you stop it? This isn't about just hoping for the best. It requires discipline. Your defense has to be proactive. Number one, you start with that rock-solid SOW we talked about. Number two, you need a formal process for every single change request. Number three, you have to empower your project manager to actually say no sometimes. And finally, you have to be totally transparent about the real costs and trade-offs of every decision.
And that discipline we're talking about, it also means making a really important choice right at the start about how you're going to manage the project. The methodology you choose is a huge deal.
Look, this isn't about one being better than the other. It's about picking the right tool for the job. Waterfall is like having a fixed blueprint. It's perfect when you know exactly what you need to build and things aren't likely to change. Agile, on the other hand, is more like a compass. It gives you a direction and lets you adapt and figure things out as you navigate more complex or innovative projects. The key is matching the method to the reality of your project.
Okay, let's get to the bottom line. The most important part, right? How does all this process, this discipline, actually translate into a financial return? Let's connect the discipline to the dollars.
If you're a CFO, this number right here should make you sit up straight. Ambiguity is the absolute enemy of your budget. When requirements aren't crystal clear, teams have to guess, and then they have to rebuild things. And that rework, it's not a small expense. It can eat up as much as 40% of your entire project budget.
And the costs you see on that initial budget, they're really just the tip of the iceberg. The real damage happens below the surface. Bad scoping creates what's called technical debt, which just makes everything slower and more expensive later on. And then there's the opportunity cost, what you lose by being late to market. That's where your ROI truly gets destroyed.
But here's the flip side. Here's the reward for getting this right. And wow, is it massive. Forrester Research found that projects that are executed well, the ones built on that solid foundation of rigorous scoping, can deliver an average ROI of between 200 and 400%. That's the prize. That's why you do the hard work up front.
So, let's be crystal clear. Scoping isn't some bureaucratic hurdle or a box-checking exercise. It is the very process that turns a high-risk tech spend into a predictable, high-return strategic investment. It gives you control over your budget, it lets you get ahead of risks, and it makes sure everyone is working towards the same definition of success.
So, at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one simple question for you and your leadership team. Because a project without a well-defined scope isn't really a plan. It's just a bet, a gamble with your company's money. So, which one are you going to choose?